If you're looking for a very straightforward, no BS approach to strength and hypertrophy training, today we are reviewing two legends in the space, Joe Defranco and Jimmy Smith, and we're gonna take a peek at their program. We're gonna start right now. What's up everyone? Jason Brown here, the king of programming, back for another programming review. Today is a very special review because we're going over someone that I have looked up to and learned a lot from over really the entire course of my career. But I just wanted to put that out there as just a special appreciation because I have spent a lot of time learning from Joe Defranco and he was a major influence on me. So first and foremost, I start all these videos the same way, giving you guys some context. If you guys are new to the channel, you're here for the first time, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. We're gonna be doing a lot more of these programs. So a lot of great stuff coming down the pipeline. I'm getting feedback from you guys on what programs you wanna see. And needless to say, context. What are we looking at when we do these reviews? Well, when I look at a program, I think about the fundamentals of program design. That is, exercise order. Where are the exercises in the session placed? Is there a logical order to them? In a simplistic way, we think about kind of big to small. Things like our squats, deadlifts, presses, our power development movements done early in the session, and then more of our isolation accessory work done later in the session. As far as sets, reps, and rest intervals, how are the exercises programmed? Are we using proper rest intervals that align with what is being asked of us? If we're doing a 5-rep max squat, you typically want to see, at least in an ideal world, is having a longer bout of rest, 3-4 minutes rest between sets. As opposed to isolation work, we can get away with some shorter rest intervals. So those are really important things that I'm looking for. I'm also looking at whether or not there is any conditioning. I tend to see a lot of programs drop the ball on conditioning. And I think that as a whole, we tend to see in the industry that people place a lot more value on strength and hypertrophy work and not as much on conditioning. Conditioning literally is your base of fitness. Every program, in my opinion, should have it. Some programs do it well, some programs don't do it at all, and then some programs do it, of course, haphazardly. So we're gonna get into whether or not this program has that. As far as kind of my own things that I like to see, as far as structure, as far as how the week is organized, I like to see some details as far as what is being asked of people. But you know, again, I want you guys to understand that what I'm looking at when I do these, as opposed to just putting it out there and saying, hey, this is a terrible program and not giving you any context. Context is what makes these reviews important. So without further ado, we're gonna get into Joe Defranco and his Forever Strong program, which is in the Train Heroic app. I will tell you guys, I am very familiar with the Train Heroic app. I deliver my training subscriptions in this app, so hopefully that makes it a little bit easier for me to be accurate and to understand how to look at the days, because that certainly can delay the process or maybe even confuse me in terms of how things are delivered. But this app is pretty straightforward. I like this app a lot. And starting out, a lot of detail as to what's happening in this workout. He tells you the training split. He tells you, really goes above and beyond with telling you what they should be doing for the day. There is a full warm-up. The training session for the day number 1 consists of rotational med ball throw. So this is an explosive movement that he's doing at the beginning of the session. It's 3 sets of 5 reps on each side. My only criticism here is that there is no rest interval. So typically we would see anywhere from 45, 60 seconds. Maybe if you're working with more dynamic effort with more bar velocity work, you go a little bit longer. But for this movement, I would like to see a rest interval here. I don't see it, so that would be one thing I would potentially include that's not here. As far as our next exercise, we have some barbell bench press with a slow eccentric, 5 sets of 4. Again, rest interval, where is it, guys? Come on, I know you guys know what the rest interval should be, but I don't see it here. So again, something that we would like to have in every program. We need to know how long we're resting. Otherwise, people can just, you know, rest 30 seconds when we actually want them to rest 3 minutes. From there, we're going into some more accessory work. So this is obviously an upper body centric day. Feet elevated, push up. I think this is done as one exercise, so it's not in a giant set or a superset. And then we've got chin ups, no rest interval, prone T lateral raise. This is done in a giant set fashion. And guys, the only thing I'm missing here is rest intervals. Maybe there is something that I'm overlooking, but I don't see any rest intervals, and this is what you would see if you were using this program. And yeah, that's an important piece. And then we've got some grip work at the end of the day here, which I know Joe Defranco is a big fan of grip work. So this day as a whole, is very well structured as far as exercise order. We have a primer, which is our plyometric variation. We've got our big lift, our barbell bench press. We've got some accessory work for both the upper body, both pulling musculature as well as pushing. And then we culminate things with some grip work. So overall, very well structured day. The sets and reps are on point. They align very well with what is being asked in terms of the movement that is in the programming for that day, but I don't see the rest interval. So is it a make or break? I would say probably not. I think that what is here is very solid, but it's one of those things, guys, that we need to have, okay? So let's move on to day 2. So day 2 is, again, another day that has a lot of detail to start things off, a lower body centric warm-up. So we've got a lower body centric day that starts off with some plyometric, or excuse me, prowler push variation, which again, I would assume he's using this more as a primer to get into what we're about to do, and it looks like it's done prowler sprint explosively, 10 yards, short duration. Okay, so obviously very anaerobic in nature, but the thing that's missing, you guessed it, the rest interval, okay? So got to make sure that stuff is in there, guys. It's very important. And then very similar structure to this day as our previous day. And you might be thinking, well, like, what does it matter? Well, similar structure to the end user means that they have less thought that has to go into it. They can get into this session and train and know that there is a similar structure across the board. When you have an online training program that is all over the place, it makes it harder for the end user to understand what's happening. Is there a clear intent to what's happening? And again, less guesswork means more time training. So I like that it is very similar structure. This day consists of a barbell squat with a slow eccentric, just like we did for our bench press, but there isn't a rest interval. And let's move on to the next exercise. We've got dumbbell deficit deadlifts, doing some AMRAP work, so some higher rep work for our hamstrings. Barbell reverse lunge, a step up, great variation. This is done in a giant set fashion where he's got essentially 3 exercises. So we've got a barbell reverse lunge, a step up, we've got a band resisted hamstring curl, and then we got a single leg calf raise. I'm not typically a fan of doing giant sets or supersets with lower body work because we've talked about this a lot, but one of the things that we think about if we do something like a split squat and an RDL. Split squat, by nature of what it is, does tend to be very quadriceps dominant, more anterior chain, whereas the RDL tends to be more posterior chain. However, we still have musculature that supports in those movements. So it's not like we're working the anterior chain in isolation. There still is an isometric value to our posterior chain to have to support something like a split squat. So to do an RDL and a split squat in a superset fashion, can you do it? Yes. Is it optimal? I'd say probably most cases, probably not, especially if you want to pump the loading up. But the way he's doing it here with these movements, I really like, because you've got some isolation work and then you've got some direct calf work. So I don't have anything wrong with that other than the fact there is no rest interval. And that's, again, I would say something that we can easily add to this program to really improve what is being asked on these days. So let's move on to day 3. So day 3 is a cardio day, and he gives you, wow, he gives you 7 options, guys. That's a lot of options for cardio. I could look at this 2 ways. I could look at it as actually 9 options, 10 options. So 10 options for your cardio day. I would look at this 2 ways. And I've done this before in my program where I've given people the option. And this is my experience with it. My experience is that people tend to gloss over options and maybe skip that day. They don't put the same value into it as they would the strength days. So what I would do is I would provide the training. I would say, hey, we're gonna do, if it's zone 2 cardio, which that looks like the intent of this day, then I would say, hey, we're gonna do 2 cyclical pieces, we're gonna do some body weight, maybe mix in some things to keep it more interesting, but I would be very specific. And again, this is personal preference. This isn't really a slight against Joe or Jamie. This is just kind of what I would do. But I do like that there is a lot of options here because we have people that live in warmer climates that maybe can pull a sled during the winter, a light sled. Maybe you can get outside more often. I'm in New Hampshire, it's cold here right now, and I'm probably not gonna be out pulling my sled today. But I do have options as far as cyclical pieces, so there is a lot here that we can work with. And as far as recommendations, 30 to 90 minutes, perfect. Need to be at least 30 minutes for zone 2 work to really get what we want from it. And having it be conversational and it gives you a range for heart rate. I think this is a perfectly fine day. So I'm nitpicking now, but I think this is perfectly fine. And it fits very well into this program because we've done 2 very high intensity days back to back. Makes sense to have a day that's a little bit lower intensity, right? All right, so let's move on to day 4. All right, so day 4 is very similar structure. This is another upper body day. So if you remember, we had our first upper body day on Monday. So we've got 72 hours between these days, which is good. It allows for some nervous system recovery. Very similar structure as the first days. We've got a primer with med ball, slam, into vertical jump, which I love. That's a great one, but there is not a rest interval. So again, something I would easily include. Seated dumbbell military press, slow eccentric. I like that, however, 5 sets of 4 with a dumbbell military press. If we have someone very strong, we're asking them to use dumbbells as their primary implement that they're using for that movement, they might not have heavy enough of a dumbbell if they're super strong. I have guys that can deadlift in the 700-pound range that likely are gonna need some very heavy dumbbells for that for 5 sets of 4. Now, if we go a little bit higher in the repetitions, then we have a little bit more room. So I would likely go with a barbell movement for this variation just because loading capacity is higher. So again, something to consider there. Now, 5 sets of 4 for someone very strong, seated dumbbell overhead press. I'd have to kind of think about what type of loads someone potentially would be using. But I know that that could be a limitation and might be something that I would go a different direction with. Diesel back attack, posterior flies. I don't exactly know what this is, but I understand what the intent is, and he's doing some AMRAP work with something like a rear delt raise, which fits in very well with this day of training. Medial delt massacre, and this stuff, I'll tell you guys, if you're not familiar with Joe Defranco, he's got a lot of great videos on different variations that he's come up with, and I've used a lot of those variations over the year, and I will tell you that some of them are really, really effective for doing what they are intended to do. So I would definitely check those out. Another giant set, which does fit very well, and then we got some direct biceps work, which is essentially, he's doing biceps on biceps, and he's doing 2 different angles. And this is a good strategy to use, essentially an agonist superset where we're doing the same musculature with back-to-back exercises. It's a strategy we can use, but it's probably not a strategy we'd use all the time. It's something that we can lean on from time to time. So overall, I like this day. I just want to see the rest intervals. That's really the best thing that we could do here to really make this program. So moving on, another day of very similar structure, which, as I've said before, I like the fact that we're having a consistent theme. A consistent theme means that someone's planning their program. They're not just throwing darts against the wall and see what sticks. We see that far too often. You guys have seen those reviews. I don't like that. So we've got a lower body centric day, a primer. We got a barbell deadlift with a slow eccentric, Romanian deadlift, and then we've got another giant set, hip bridge, so some direct glute work, and then even throws in some upper back work, which is something that you don't see a lot of people do on a lower body day. But why would you do upper back work on a lower body day? Upper back assists in everything. Lower body, your deadlift, your squat. There's an integral part as far as the upper back complex is concerned with things like your squat. Everyone knows you get into a squat position, you have to stabilize and create tension. So I like upper back work, and that's actually something I learned from Westside Barbell back in the day. They'd always do heavy rows on lower body days, and people would look at me like, you're doing rows on a, well, there's an important role here as far as the upper back is concerned. So I do like that strategy, and I like the way this is programmed. But are there rest intervals? I don't see them. All right. So really, so far, guys, this is my only knock against this program, and I wish they were here because I obviously respect both of these coaches very much, and I think that I've learned a lot from them, and I think a lot of other people can learn a lot from these 2 coaches. All right, so let's go over the pros and cons of this program. There is a lot of pros. The main thing that sticks out to me is that it is very sound. It is very well organized across the week. So first pro would be organization is on point. Second pro would be that the use of exercise selection is on point. It is very much in alignment with what he's trying to do on each day, and I like the choice of exercises. Pro number 3 would be that it is very easy to build in recovery through this program. So I'm not gonna be overly sore going into each session, which is gonna allow me to push harder. So I really like that. And then my last pro of this program would be that it is definitely going to allow you to push the envelope with both strength and hypertrophy. There is a very clear intent to our main movements, our power development movement that they start every session with, as well as that main lift. And then the accessory work is gonna help us build on that musculature that we're working on those lower and upper body centric days. Now, my cons of this program, there's only 2 of them. First one being, there are no rest intervals. And I know that Smitty and Joe know the rest intervals. no question in my mind that if I ask them, they know the rest intervals, but they're not there. And if I'm the end user, I want to know how long I'm resting. And maybe there's a place in the feed. I know Train Heroic does a really good job having the feed and the ability to ask questions. Maybe it's there, but I think that if we can remove any uncertainty on the end user's end, rest intervals would do that for me. And then my last con would be the Zone 2 conditioning day, definitely an integral part of the program. I would potentially add another one of those sessions, so have 2 Zone 2 days, and Saturday would be a good day for it because there was nothing on Saturday, but be very clear what we're asking. Instead of saying, hey, here are the options, give them the option as far as what the actual training session is. And this is something I talk about a lot. The conditioning should have the same level of detail as our strength work does. So I would do that with the main piece, and then I would give some options underneath. So again, that's kind of more personal preference, but I think anytime we can eliminate the choice, giving the client the choice, the athlete the choice to do something, and we can make it very descriptive in the sense that they don't have to guess, that's going to lend itself to a lot better results long term. All right, so something we're going to be doing new in all of these programming reviews is giving you an overall rating. And I'll be honest with you guys, definitely puts a lot of pressure on me to come up with a score, but I think that it's going to help you guys out to understand where this program falls in terms of a 1 to 10 scale. So this program is for someone that is definitely high intermediate to advanced, definitely some advanced training methods in there. If you're a beginner, probably not the right program for you. You're likely someone that's been in the trenches for a decent length of time, knows how to squat, bench, deadlift, all of your foundational movement patterns, and is ready to push those lists. So definitely intermediate to advanced program. In this program, I am going to give a 9.1.
Best program available on the internet today.
I think it's very difficult to find a trainer like Jason that...
Since joining Everyday Heroes, I feel like I've stopped working out and actually started training.